Listeners, good stuff. I am sitting here with Tina English once again, a performance coach, author, and speaker. And today we have the pleasure of speaking to her about her upcoming book, Escaping the Sustainable Pain Zone, which will be out on the 18th of November, Amazon, and available worldwide. Tina, welcome to the show.
Well, yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I mean, we had quite a discussion back on the previous episodes. If you haven't seen that, we'll link that in the description as well. But I really love this topic, and I really love the fact that you're bringing this out for everybody now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about escaping the sustainable pain zone? What is this all about?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning how it started. Actually, it started very simple by me just thinking about escaping like the uncomfortable things in your life. And in my mind, there was like, we call that thing the comfort zone somehow, but the comfort zone is not comfortable. To be honest, like the comfort zone is actually really uncomfortable. It feels pretty shitty, if I'm allowed to say that word, unless to the point when we escape it, because this is when it becomes comfortable. Like maybe not comfortable in the sense of what we think like comfortable. The comfort zone itself is like what you are used to. You know it, so you are used to do these things. That's the comfort, but it doesn't mean that it's comfortable. You are just experienced in doing it. But most of the time, it's us settling into something that is not dangerous anymore. And by dangerous, I mean like every time you go outside of the known area of your life, your mind thinks or your brain thinks like, oh, that's risky. And it is. Growth is always a little bit risky, but not in the sense that you risk your life normally, because there are no tigers running around in the streets normally. So you risk being seen. I think this is the important thing here, because you risk something that you haven't learned to be right. So in education, many times we have been told this is right behavior, this is the wrong behavior, and this is what you have to do to be loved, to be part of the community. And this is what you try to follow. And this is what creates your zone of not comfort, but security. You know how to handle it in a way, but it's not comfortable. It's just what you adjusted to be or settled in to be. But for many of us, it's not you. You have been told not to be loud. You have been told not to cross your eyes. You have been told to whether not cry, because children or big children don't cry. You have been told so many things that dimmed your light. So that is comfortable? No, it's not, because it's not you. It's not your essence. It's something, a version of you that you think you need to be okay. And this is when I started to think, so actually, you are not comfortable there. You're sustaining a pain, the pain of not being you. And you don't even realize the pain because you're told that's the behavior that you're supposed to take on. And then I thought more about it. I was like, is it just like in one area of your life? And I was like, no, actually, it's everywhere where you allow it to be. If you're, for example, sitting on a little bit of overweight and you're not taking care of this, it's a sustainable pain zone if you're not feeling well with that, but you have excuses not to go out of it. It's in your relationships. If you're not happy there, but you are afraid of not finding another partner, you're afraid to be alone, you are in a sustainable pain zone. It's in your job. If you, for example, want to be an entrepreneur, business owner, but you are in this job because it pays your bills, you are in a sustainable pain zone. So everywhere where you allow it in, it's there. And it's not comfortable. It's sustaining a pain of not fulfilling your life. And that hit me so much that I was like, I love that. I need to talk about it this way, because I think as long as we call it the comfort zone, it doesn't sound like scary. It sounds like the same like the situation is. It's okay. It's comfortable. But if you give it a name that names it, like you're sustaining a pain. That sounds not so cool. I think even if you'd say like, I'm comfortable here, that sounds, I'm doing fine. I'm sustaining a pain sounds I'm not doing so fine, and maybe I should change something. So I was thinking that a first great step for people is to realize that they are in a sustainable pain zone. And from there, they can take steps to escape that.
That's a really interesting way to put it. And I was just thinking in my own mind too, what are you, and they always ask you, what are you comfortable with? Right. But what you're kind of saying in sort of an upending sort of way is how much pain are you willing to kind of endure? Is that the idea, or am I sort of off base there?
It is not, I think it's going even further. This is just a part of it. But if you look especially at the relationships, like for example, if you're in a toxic relationship, it didn't start out completely toxic. It started out nice. Then there were some things happening that were not so, let's say, good. But you adjusted. And over time, these boundaries, they were like just pushed and pushed and pushed. And because it's just slowly happening, we adjust further and further and further. So I think that at some point, and especially many people can relate to that in the relationship area, it's really getting super, not comfortable, not super sustainable. It's getting painful, but they're still there because it's stretched really, really slow. I mean, there are people, they're hit by their partner and they're still there. They're still there. You shouldn't be there anymore if your partner hits you or does these things to you. But as it was never coming like, I mean, you would go if that happens on the first date, right? You wouldn't go on a second date, most likely. I mean, maybe someone, but it's not very likely. So, but over time, and you got to love your partner, you got to know your partner, and then suddenly you find excuses why that happened. And if you are trained, and I say trained, because it's a kind of a brainwash that also we had as children, like when you say you cannot cry and all these things, you get brainwashed a little bit. And then you might even think, what did I do wrong to cause this reaction? And I think all this together makes the sustainable pain zone so difficult to even realize that you're there, because it's so step by step, like just getting a little bit worse and a little bit worse, and there's still so much hope that one day it's getting better. The same in the job. I'm not just saying it for relationships. Like for example, if you have just 1 over hour, then the second, then suddenly you have 5 over hours, and then suddenly you don't even get paid for them because it's just part of the job to keep the job. And you're still there because you didn't, at one point you just said yes to something that wasn't okay anymore. And then I think another problem is to admit to yourself that that happened, that you overstepped your own boundary. Because this is painful, because you have to admit to yourself, I allowed this to happen. And I think this is the thing. There's this sentence that says like, everything that you allow will continue. You allow it to happen. And then instead of acknowledging it to yourself, you compartmentalize it. You put it away and it's like, I'm dealing with this later. It's not so bad. Yeah, it's it's okay. It's not. It's not.
It's funny how I was just, as you were speaking on that, I was just thinking to myself too that you're right. Like we talk about the comfort zone when as it pertains to building skills, new skills, things like that, and then it's hard at first, and then your comfort zone expands to make it easier. But the focus you're putting on this is that the opposite is also true. We can kind of shrink in the same way, if I'm not mistaken, by expanding that acceptable pain zone.
Exactly. I think this is the part that is so overlooked all the time, that by just slowly increasing the pain, it's like the frog that sits in the water, in the boiling water. It doesn't realize it, and it happens until the frog is dead. And I think this is the magic thing that happens there. You just don't realize it because it's not fast. It's just step by step happening. And as we are so adaptable as humans, which is great, it's a miracle that helps us to survive on one hand. But on the other hand, unfortunately, because we are trained to sustain pain by not being ourselves, we are also okay to like say, yeah, okay, it's okay. But then at one point it happens something and that is not sustainable anymore. But as we have stretched it so far, it's hard to say stop.
I love this, and that there's a whole book outlining this. Why don't you tell a little bit to the audience about what they can expect inside the book? Is it stories? Is it tips? Is it hacks?
I think it's a little bit of all. So first of all, we dive into you yourself discovering where you sit in the sustainable pain zone, because this is the most important part. That you for yourself acknowledge, this is the part where I'm sustaining the pain and not fulfilling my life. So just really make a status quo. I'm here. This is where I start. And from there, looking into how can you change it. Like, of course, there's stories, there's little metaphors, there is exercises, and there is tips on what you can do, like step by step, what you can do to escape. It's not like you just read the book and tomorrow you're out. It's work. It's always work. It's always a way that you have to like embark on. But if you are consistent, then you're going to be out. It's the choice that makes the difference. The choice to overcome the fear of saying, what? Stop. Now I have to think about myself first, because I think that's also a very important thing to say. No, wait, I have to think if I say yes to this, for just an example, right? So to start making conscious decisions, like not just because other people say, I think that's the right thing for you. Think, okay, great for that advice. Thank you. I listened to other 10 people and now I'm sitting down and make my own opinion and then I follow that. Not afraid of making a mistake because it's possible. Possible that you don't like it. But the thing is, and I think this is what we don't think about, you can always go back to where you were. The expanding is the thing that you're scared of, not because if it's already bad, what can happen? Cannot get much worse.
Speaking about conscious decisions, I always enjoy asking people this. But what made you choose writing a book for escaping the sustainable pain zone instead of, say, I don't know, a blog or a carousel or maybe even a Netflix special?
I think for me, like it was always like this. If I sit down and I have this, then I have to write. And it's not like I have a choice. I need to write this down. And once it's like, let's say like it's 50 pages or so, then it's like, yeah, now I have to do it. Like I have to complete that. That's how the book is coming into reality for me, basically all the time. Like I feel the inner need to bring this to paper because I am so excited by this idea. And then I try to look at it from different angles and to explore it and just to look, where can I find this? Where can I apply this? And then it grows and grows and grows. And suddenly it's like, okay, that's the way. Let's go.
Interesting, and I love the way that you frame that and how you said you were excited about writing it. It leads into my next question, which I'm sure my audience is expecting now, and they're probably rolling their eyes because now they know what's coming. They say that writing a book is about 98% procrastination and 2% actually doing it. How true is that?
Uh, I think that in that case, people, I don't know if procrastination is the word that I would like use for it. Of course, you're not sitting there and writing 8 hours a day. It's not possible. But for me, it's the time that I gather ideas because my brain needs space to go into creativity, to, like to pick. I don't know from where it is picking from, maybe from my experience, but also like I have to give that space because it's not everything there in the first moment. So the details, they come by letting them come. And it's like, I think you have, if you're writing a book or whatever you do, whatever your project, you have to just give it space and time to fall into place. That's also like for an entrepreneurial journey or even a relationship is not happening overnight. People tend to think, because we are living in a very fast world right now, that it's happening way faster than it does, but it doesn't. I hear that a lot from people, entrepreneurs, like starting entrepreneurs, like, I'm just doing this and then it's going to work. I mean, it's possible, but not very likely. So you have to put the work in, and sometimes it will stop, and sometimes you have to let it breathe, and sometimes you have to give it air, and sometimes you have to just also allow yourself to like take a step back and look from a little bit of a distance so you can see the whole picture a little bit better. And I think that this is what many people, and when writing a book, say is procrastination. For me, it's not. For me, it's just like finding my creativity, stepping back, getting back into myself, to my creativity, and then coming back with new ideas, new angles, and new things that I can somehow put into the whole thing. So I'm not, maybe I'm just kind to myself. I'm not calling it procrastination. I don't know. But for me, it's not.
Love that. I love that. Just going into your process of writing and now, being self-published, what do you think was the biggest or what has been the biggest challenge in this whole process for you?
Writing it in English, to be honest. So, you know that I'm originally Austrian. So my language is German. So English, I speak English all the time. But writing, like, I have learned at university because I studied communication and psychological things that it's, you need to take care about words. There's so nuances to words. And when I wrote that, in my brain, there was a sentence, but then I looked at a word. I was like, no, that word doesn't exactly mean what I want to say with this. And if it's not your mother tongue, then I feel it's like a little bit more difficult even to find the suitable word. So ChatGPT and I did work on words. Like, give me like 10 other words for this word. And then I had to choose one. And sometimes I changed it in the end. But yeah, I think that was a challenge for me.
Well, and it definitely sounds like a challenge just because, I mean, as you were mentioning, just going between 2 different languages, a lot of times you can't really translate word for word, right? Because, I mean, there's sayings and maybe there's a saying in German you would say, but I mean, you translate it and it's like, "I am a donut." Well, that makes no sense. So you have to find something else to fit in there. Is that sort of the idea too?
Yeah. So most of the time I do think English because I'm not like I'm living in the world basically. So the communication language that I have like 80% of the time is English. But of course, like there are things that I still think sometimes in German, like as you say, like some sayings. And then you go like, or there are words that I don't know in English, like specific words. Like for example, if you want me to repair a car, I'm sure I don't know all the particles in English, for example. So, and this is like when it gets very specific, then sometimes there are some things coming in German or in any other language that I know. So that's not predictable for me, but I have to, of course, fit it into the one package of English.
Love that. So we talked about the challenge that you had. What would you say was maybe your proudest moment in your time that you were writing?
I think the idea, the most rewarding moment was when the idea kind of settled in for me to take action. Like when I was so, I don't want to say confident because it's not confident. When I felt this impulse to do something about it, that was an amazing moment. And I remember that I shared the idea with someone and that person said like, "Oh, I like that. That's really good." And these two moments together, they gave me really a lot of energy to go further and further and to, I did this really quite, I wrote it quickly. It wasn't a very long writing process. I think 3 months and then it was done. So that's pretty fast for something like that.
3 months does sound like a pretty fast time, but I imagine the idea has probably been percolating for a little bit back in there. Speaking on that, a lot of the writing process is about also self-discovery, right? So I'm curious to know, did you learn anything about yourself or surprise yourself in the process?
I think that looking at this sustainable pain zone, in some way, you realize even more that where you're still holding on to some things that you are not like embracing yet. So I'm not saying that I had like the huge, huge discovery, but I discover always something and where I can still grow. So on this journey, I think I consciously allowed myself to acknowledge the things where I was not yet fully embracing every color of myself.
Sometimes we're carrying around these little things and those little things turn into big things, right? So like what you were saying with the, we accept one little thing, then the next thing happens, and the next thing happens. And then you get to a point where it's like, wait, how did I allow that to happen? Is that sort of the breakthrough discovery that we're looking for with this?
Yes. So also when I was thinking about how to help people to do their steps, like thinking of exercises, thinking of what they could do, of course, I was thinking about my own processes. Like, what did I do to overcome that? And sometimes I discovered, hey, you didn't finish that process for yourself. Maybe you just could go deeper. Like, I try all the things that I give, like, as an advice to other people. If I haven't tried it with clients yet, I'm trying on myself. So I'm not giving advice that wasn't tried on anyone before. And normally I try it on myself, then I try it on someone else, and then I like, okay, it worked with multiple people. It will work with you too. But I am the first guinea pig, always. Well, for example, I like the idea of that it's not difficult to learn to say no. For some people, it's very difficult to say no. I know that because they want to say no, but it feels uncomfortable because there's a loud person and, then the fear of rejection is there. And I have a process that teaches people to say no in 5 minutes. So, for example, it's, okay, not the exact process because that would take too long right now, but I think a good first step, and this is how the book works, it gives you a first step. So the first step of learning how to say no is, first of all, look, what do I really not want? And then look for a safe situation first, where you can train yourself on saying no. So don't start with the person you're most afraid of rejection. So if it's your partner, don't start with your partner. Maybe start with the receptionist of a hotel. Maybe people don't even want to say no to these people. They don't want to say in a restaurant, I didn't like the food. So start with the small things where you personally could live with the rejection, because it's all about strengthening your muscle. It's not that easy. So start with a small step and learn. I said no and I didn't die. They didn't kill me. I'm still here. All is good. Maybe now I can take the next step and I can risk a little bit more. And I think this is how it works. Basically, everything you want to do, you take a small step and you expand. Just the other way, not in the negative way, but in the positive way this time.
Gotcha. So, note to self, I want to wait until somebody tries to sell me a subscription to Time Magazine, which is that still even a thing? So I say no to that, and it's okay. But I don't want to do that with, say, the people when they come to collect tax. Be like, no,
Well, I mean, depends on if you want to be in prison. You're breaking a law is your responsibility. I'm not taking that on me.
all right. So this has been a great conversation, Tina, and I'm curious, and I always love asking authors this as well. Is there a plan or are there plans for sequels to the book or for other books or spin-off, I guess, series or different things, workshops maybe?
I have no idea. I don't know yet. I mean, I do work on some projects, but I'm not yet sure how they will turn out. For example, I have just created a new course. It's called Speaking Your Truth, because it's just we said, like, saying no is speaking your truth. And many people are scared of speaking their truth in relationships, in their jobs, to themselves, or speaking on stage, because also speaking on stage requires you to speak your truth, because people in the audience, they always feel when you're not authentic, and then they stop listening to you. And if you want to have an impact, and this is what I'm teaching people in this, if you want to have an impact, you need to start telling your truth, even though sometimes uncomfortable. You need to step out of this limitations that you have, and you need to start being yourself so you can impact other people. There is, of course, more to it, because especially where you are not healed yet, you might trigger or be triggered by the conversation. You might react instead of just act or just communicate. But that is what's behind. The most important thing is find your voice and trust yourself enough to let others know what's going on inside of you. So, for example, this is one project that I'm really excited about developing, apart from the escaping the sustainable pain zone, but it all is basically under the umbrella. So there will be coming a lot more, and it will be all under this umbrella.
Once again, thank you for being on the show and allowing us to highlight this book. Again, that is it's going to be Escaping the Sustainable Pain Zone, and that is going to be out the 18th of November, if I'm not mistaken. 2 weeks prior, we plan to have that link, which we're going to put in the show notes for you, as well as we're going to link to any of Tina's future projects as well. Tina, right before we go, is there anything else that you feel that maybe I should ask about the book that I haven't asked, or anything that you really want people to take away?
Takeaway for me is always, please, please start taking a look where you accept things that you are not born to live with for the rest of your life. Just risk this because it's going to change your life for so much better.
Excellent. So, thank you once again for being on the show, Tina. I mean, that's really powerful too, right? Powerful note to end on, just learn to say no, or learn to not accept what is causing you pain.
Yeah, that's a great first step. And then build on that. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Love that so much. Thank you to everybody, and we'll have those links for you shortly. And until then, if you can't be that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe go out and try to be that motivation, inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.